And I think we're live. But I am not just gonna leave it like this. We have to do something else about this. And I think what we're gonna do is set this up very quick. Oh, another year. Another year, and woo, we got stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Folks, I am Ronan Chain, and welcome to the Bottles and Breaks, a Last of Us podcast. I'm your host, and happy 10th anniversary, happy 10 years to. Originally, it was called Outbreak Day, but because shit actually happened in the real world, they changed it to Happy Last of Us Day. And as always, I can't do this alone. I prefer having somebody else engage, and have tonight someone who I recently met at a live event that celebrated The Last of Us. I have Diana here with me. Diana, thanks for joining the podcast.
Dude, thanks for having me. Really glad to be here.
Um, I think that what was cool of how we met is that, for those who don't know, there was a gallery nucleus event in LA, Pasadena area, where folks could go see art that was made in celebration towards the franchise, and that there was going to be signings. And unfortunately, I couldn't make it to that first signing, but I made it to Sunday. I flew out for one day and flew back out. But in that event, I made new friends, and it was such a surreal thing to experience. And we'll get into more of the grandeur of like what came out and whatnot. But I wanted to just showcase that for a moment, because that event was more of a Last of Us Day than stuff that was released today, and we'll get into that later. But Dana, how? Let me ask you this:
Mm-hmm.
How did you come to find out about that event, and how did it at least go for you on the first day and then the second day?
So, like after being introduced to this franchise, like over the years, like I've kind of leaned into gaming because like I've always been kind of like a pretty busy person.
Yeah,
And like friend after friend would be like, you got to play this game, you got to play this game, and I'd be like, man, I really want to, but I'm really busy. And so like life started to slow down a bit, and it took like one definitive friend, my friend Andrew, who was like, come on, the second game's coming out soon, you this is your time to catch up. So I finally jumped onto the bandwagon that was The Last of Us. And so since that moment, I was pretty much like completely sworn into like the tribe, right? Everything that was released, anything that happened, like when part 2 was released, I was right on board with it. And I was like, oh, this is like truly the best thing, because I've been like a comic book fan since I was like 8 years old, right? And so this has kind of been like pop culture in general has really been ingrained in my sort of like lifestyle. And so, it had been a while since something really captured me in a way that like I didn't anticipate. And this was undeniably something like that. And it's forever. It's been years since I've had something touch me this deeply and make me this invested. So
right.
when I heard that, like, okay, I was like, dude, it's the 10th anniversary. They've got to be doing something. And, when the show came about and they started doing like screenings, and I, luckily got invited, like they hit me up on my website, because I was just like one of those annoying kind of commenters that was pretty much on every major post that Naughty Dog or Neil Druckmann or HBO was like just putting out there. And I was just showing so much enthusiasm toward the franchise as a whole that they invited me out. So I got to go. And so anytime something popped up on the radar, and I'm not even on like Discord groups or anything, I'm like relying solely on like the channels that I'm part of. And so when I heard about the Nucleus Gallery, I was like, this is awesome. But I immediately got paranoid, because I was like, I don't know if I'll actually be able to go to this, because Nucleus, if anybody's familiar, it is a pretty small gallery, especially
Yeah,
when they're having events. And so I was like, oh shit, this is going to be maybe max cap 100 people if I'm lucky. So I had failed a couple of times, because I tried to go to their Spider-Verse event, and it didn't work out. Tickets sold out in like 2.5 minutes. And so I got 2 laptops out very prepared to like get at least a ticket. And I set one computer up for Saturday, the other one for Sunday, and miraculously got one ticket for each show. And so I was like, holy shit, okay, cool. And and of course I was really excited to like see what art would be featured, because I do a lot of freelance work in the art space, and I work with comic book artists and writers and creators and stuff. And so I was really, really excited, especially following the stuff that Greg Ruth had been doing the last year and a half. So sorry, my cat's playing with his toy
That's
over
okay.
here. But yeah, so to actually get to the gallery to kind of like feel like, it was a little strange at first, because I was like, oh, I go a lot of places alone, so that part wasn't so jarring to me. But like to be in a space with the Last of Us fans that were like truly at the same level, if not more part of the fandom than I am. Like it was such an energy, and I was like quietly stoked to be there. So I got there and I was probably at 30th in line for the first night. And just being there, I was just so excited and so jazzed to be like among this new sort of like faction, really, of people that made me feel like I was really somewhere I should have been all along. And so
Yes, yeah.
yeah, and Nucleus is like, it's come a long way. Like I used to go to events there before, like in the before times, if you will. And so like I'd been there for Street Fighter galleries and other Marvel galleries and discussions. And so for them to have like, like a Fedra soldier giving you a passport, like your credential to come into the space. And then, like I had kind of looked at the menu of what they were selling, and I was like, okay, I'll get a couple of things. Yeah. And I'll get some stuff from other people. But little did I realize, you step into that space and you see the stuff up close, it's like game over, because it's so much more alluring in person. And so
Yeah.
I found myself kind of just jumping into discussions with people that like I didn't anticipate. Not that I was like eavesdropping, but like it felt very welcoming that people were just talking out loud. People were there solo, maybe two people, but everyone kind of came together and just kind of jived really well. And I was like, damn, dude, this is awesome. And so yeah, it was great. We didn't know who the guests were going to be first run, because I think they emailed and said, oh, we're going to email who's attending the day of, and it never came through. But we were pleasantly surprised, to have the dev team and the creators there. So that was really awesome. And then of course Sunday came along, and then we got Neil
Oh
Druckmann.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, which you're clearly up to date with, because you were there, and it was awesome. It was really, really awesome.
Yeah, that was something that again, it was weird that it was my second time
Yeah.
seeing him, and I was just glad that he was
Mhm.
just as much of a gentleman as I remembered from when I first met him at the Game Awards concert I had gone to
Oh,
a
you
few months
did?
ago, I think.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
saying how we were there at the same time. Ironically enough, I had gone alone to that too,
Yeah.
and you were like 2 aisles in front of me, or like right next to me, which was so
That
crazy.
was a weird thing that we mentioned. When I mentioned it, I was just like, "You were there as well?" And I was just like, "I'm like, that
Yeah,
is so cool and whatnot."
yeah. That's awesome. You got to meet him there, though.
Yeah, and I just love that you seeing them at the table at the signing on the second day, that he is still just as surprised that like, wow, people actually showed up just for
Yeah.
this and whatnot. And I remember just the look on the other creatives who were there, and I was like, I seen you from the Grounded documentary. You're the DP. You worked on the lighting for the characters and whatnot. You're one of the
Yeah.
artists for the prints that they were selling. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's one thing that I like to emphasize, that that event was pure love. It
Yeah.
reminded me of all the tales I heard from old school Comic Cons, or when I hear people talking about how they had a small D&D group, it'd be like, this was my first time, and I've said this before, that other than this podcast and the streams and the people I've had here, that
Mhm.
event was the only other example I could see where I was just in line with people who love this franchise just as much as I did.
Yeah.
And appreciated for different swords. We're willing to do other stuff that I wasn't do.
Mhm.
But it was really, really just a sweet vibe. And
Yeah.
before we go any further, I do want to give the shout out. People be like, "Why you bring it up?" But I'm like, I don't care. It's my podcast. I'm gonna say this, that I want to congratulate the Writers Guild for
Mhm.
finding this deal with the AMTP or whatever that group is called. Stuff is still being sorted out, but finally something came about this
Totally.
long lasting strike that
Yeah.
was very, very pivotal, I think, for outcome.
146 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's a long time. That's a really long time to be without, like people that are so crucial to the creative process. So, not a moment too soon. I'll say that much.
No, yeah,
Woo!
and but yeah, I just wanted to give them a shout out, and now it's off into the Screen Actors Guild, and hopefully they get their fair compensation as well. That
Yep.
way, they can go back to work, and we can start covering it at a full pace. And
Mhm.
I mean, once everything gets sorted out from both the writers deal and Screen Actors Guild, then here and there, when stuff for season 2 comes out, we will be talking about that.
Amazing.
But what I do want to go uh, talk a little bit was that yes, today is Last of Us Day, and they did drop some news, but they made it adamant clear that we
Mhm.
weren't going to talk about games and shows, which I wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
And yet, because again, they just pulled an agreement to strike, I believe, the video game industry. I don't know when that will start kicking in full gear,
Yep.
but I wasn't surprised that it was being playing out. But I thought that at least we would get an event pop up, much like Gallic Nucleus. And I'm like, you know what? Do this. If you can't
Yep.
talk about gaming and the show, which I understand fully, do
Mhm.
something else unique that's still gravitating other than just a merch drop.
Yeah.
And for better for worse, that is what we got. I mean, when you look at the images that we got, I was just like, well, there it is. I mean, I figured 2 prints. I'm like,
Yeah.
yep, that makes sense. And the fact that they loaded up more on their merch store on the
Yep.
PlayStation Gear Shop. And
Yep.
I mean, I'm
I mean,
saying nothing.
especially
Go ahead.
considering what happened like last year and maybe even the year before, right? Everyone was like, "All
Yeah.
right, right. Part 3." And then nothing. And then it just kept on going. And then last year, even still, they were just like, "There's not going to be big news, but there's still going to be news." And it was like, "Oh, we're getting a multiplayer," which awesome. It's still awesome, but it's still not the news that everybody's waiting for. So the fact that they nipped it in the bud with their first messaging was like, "We will not be discussing future projects or the next season of the show." And it was like, well,
I commend them. I commend
yeah,
them for singing out right, but I'm like, but you have a plan B, right? You have a plan
yeah.
B?
But yeah, I'm right there with you that I'm surprised that like for the 10th anniversary, that's a literal decade of this franchise that they didn't cobble together something like you said, like some sort of immersive experience. Because like like having been able to go to that New York thing, like, and really all it was is that they rented out a theater, a small theater. They dressed it up, and they put movie posters from the game. They put trash on the floor. They
Yeah.
had like the clicker wall to take pictures with. But other than that, it wasn't like a heavy lift. So I thought for sure, and especially the fact that they have horror nights going, like it's right there.
Again,
What
and
is happening?
listen, I want to make it clear to everybody here, whoever watching this, if you ever do checking this out, I don't work in the industry. I am just speaking talking as an observer of seeing a trend 1, 2 more times often, and be like, well, if I'm this devoted of a fan and I could give my 2 cents and they have the right to either ignore it or listen to it and see what they do with it, I would
Mhm,
have thought that, okay, this is a big seminal year. The year.
mhm. Yeah.
Um, 10 years. The show dropped. People, loved it. People craved it. And I would figure that halfway through the year, if you see that a strike is coming, you know, on the rise, I would have at least had a contingency plan to be like, you know what? Other than just relying on dropping news about like we're doing it, we're doing a part 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I would have thought, okay, because they and to their props, they've kept a lot of this stuff with the gamings and the shows close to the chest. We didn't
Yeah.
really get a teaser trailer for the show until around
Jeez,
this
yeah.
time last
Yeah.
year. And it
Mm-hmm.
was a few months before the show dropped. So I figured, okay, I can understand that. But I at least that's, and again, that's what I took away from going to the Gallery Nucleus. I haven't gone to Halloween Horror Nights. I'm hoping I can do that
Oh, you
before they
haven't?
close down.
Oh
I couldn't.
shit!
I had to fly out,
Yeah,
instantly and
man.
whatnot.
You gotta come out. It's
But
pretty good.
but I'm glad people got to experience it. And I'm like, well, you know what? There's something else you can do with that.
Yeah.
And
Especially with the allotment of like, because I work in marketing, right, for instance, and so we do have scenarios where it's contingency plans, especially, and I've worked in the industry before, so it is quite surprising. I'm sure, like you said, like there are so many like ties, and like they can't break certain barriers when it comes to budgeting, but like I feel like there should have been a plan B, like, okay, we're not going to be able to do, we're not going to be able to bring out the actors or the voice actors or any of that stuff. We can't do
yeah,
a pop-up. So how about we do XYZ? And so like, it's coming to me right now. For instance, like they released today the footage of Troy Baker at the Seattle pop-up from last year. Like
yeah.
that could have been just as easy to like, all right.
And that's what's weird, because yes, you bring up that they brought up a Troy Baker Seattle concert, and I remember being like, oh, I couldn't go because they had a meeting signing between him and Neo advertising a whiskey or a bourbon or
Yeah.
something.
Did you get it?
I didn't get it. I'm not that high profile.
I got it. I got a couple.
Well
of them.
done.
Yes.
Well done.
It's very
But yeah,
delicious.
I remember when I saw that, because I tried
Yeah.
staying up and it was a rough night. I was just like, all right, whatever. And I woke up and I was like, I could have swore this event happened last year.
Yep.
Are they just reusing stuff that just happened last year? And I'm like, I love Troy, I love the performance, but I'm like,
Mhm.
this feels like it's like drinking a bottle you throw in the recycle bin, and then you're like, you know what? Instead of getting a new dish one out, let me just clean it up, and then here you go. You can use that as. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
It's new to somebody is as how they go about it, right?
To
Like
their
it's
point, yes, absolutely. To
yep.
someone to that is a new thing, but I think that would have been a plus thing instead of the big hitters of the only thing we're getting. That would be a plus. Like, oh, if you haven't seen this before, you don't know
Mhm.
about this. Here you go. You can experience it now.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, looking through all the merch and all this stuff again, great prints.
Mhm.
The fact that they're making some of these hoodies now and whatnot, it's cool and all. But I feel even and I think we talked about it with our friend Screas, that like if you already bought the Ellie edition, you
Yeah.
own this backpack already. Like
And I mean, they're different, but that one's more accurate. So it's even more
right,
in an injury because that's the one from the game versus the one that looks kind of like the one from the game. It's like
right.
the pins make it, but from part one, that's it. So it's kind of like, ah, shit. Because they definitely got me. I was like, I gotta get it now, man. Come on.
Yeah. To
Yeah.
me, the only thing that I find like triggering is just like I would probably get that T-shirt just because how
Yeah.
much,
Yeah.
from what we got in the show and how much I'm still wondering, are they going to use that song
Mhm.
in future stories coming about? Like, does that
Yeah.
make sense with the timeline from what they set out in the game? I
Mhm.
don't know, and yeah, I feel that appreciating everybody who was involved in making those products available, but I feel that this has was really been there, done that.
Yeah.
Um,
It
again,
felt a
I
little
don't work.
lackluster for a 10th anniversary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and again, I'm not one to poo-poo and tell them this is how you should do the one not, but I'm like, as
Yeah.
an observer,
Yeah.
and without throwing threats and bombardment, be
Mhm.
like, I will never forgive him for this. To
Yeah.
me, hey, I'm not getting paid for to talk about Last of Us. I'm just doing it as a fan. It's just another Tuesday for me, but it's a
Yeah.
big Tuesday
So
because of
Big
the
Tuesday.
celebration.
Yeah.
And and I would figure, and hopefully, if somehow, if
Yeah.
somehow the Lord gave me a chance. No, if the Lord somehow
Yeah.
somebody at Naughty Dog sees this, they could be like, you know what? Let's look into this. Let's talk about. I mean,
Yeah.
an idea that just came into my mind was like, okay, what's something we could do? How
Yeah.
about arcades? It's a big arcade event thing when it comes to Ellie and Riley, where they're playing Mortal Kombat. What if we went throughout most Peter Pepper pizzas and Chuck E. Cheese's that are still
That would have been
running and whatnot,
amazing.
and do a collab with them and have a little, have people go there, actors as clickers and whatnot, take photos with kids and whatnot, and have it just a mini event at this arcade section, and honoring, if the big hit at the arcade is Mortal Kombat 2, and if you get a high score, you get a free
Something.
thing and whatnot, something like that. I
So
don't know.
question for you. I got a question for you.
Please, yeah.
Do you think the strikes had anything to do with the sort of lackluster rollout? Or do you think, regardless of how it was going, this is what was going to be released?
Man.
Especially if you gauge from last year, for instance, right? Like,
yeah.
you kind of compare it.
I dread that it's the latter. That this was always the plan. I dread that.
Yeah.
I could see it that this could have been effective by the strike, but if this was it, what else did they have the plans up their sleeves that didn't surround the strike itself? So I truly don't know.
And I also kind of feel like, to be honest, that the Horror Nights maze is part of it. They're downplaying it a little bit, but I think that's a big part of it that they kind of didn't quite address the way that they could have. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. They could have easily plastered 10th anniversary on the market and stuff for that maze, but they didn't. So it's kind of like, all right, maybe it isn't, but is it? But isn't it? So I don't know. It's curious. But I'm one of those way too altruistic kind of people where, like, again, like, so much of it is like new to me in a way, at least like feeling it in the fandom this intensely, that I'll just take anything. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take anything at this rate, because like, same as I'm sure many people, my friends and I, when we have talked about this game in years length, like, we start dreaming up all the things, like, oh, what if they release a DLC of Joel and of Tommy, like pre Ellie, all that good stuff, like everybody else says. It never comes, and it's like, shit.
Or a comic book, or another comic book that I've been saying to the hills since I was reading American Dreams. I'm like, it wouldn't hurt to do a comic book about Tess before that. It wouldn't hurt to do a comic book about In the Between on the other side of the country, or not the country, on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Do something like that about how that plays into a factor and how it could be canon or not canon. We'll see.
I wonder if that is a big part of it too. Like, is it like, does Druckmann just not have enough time to kind of sit down and co-write something? Like, because, like, I'm not supposed to say yet, but somebody very attached to the first book, like, I'm kind of like, now I have a question to field and be like, so is there any comic book stuff coming out?
I don't want to get to I don't want to get to Joe, but I know what you're referring to.
Exactly. Well, I mean, in all due time, it should be any day now. But it's very interesting, because there are all these avenues that they could take, and instead they're sticking with merchandise and sticking with, like, audio, more or less, but I don't know.
And I even have, like, a mini idea that it just popped into my mind that I'm not working. I would have done something like, what if we did like a 1 day mini Comic-Con event each year during Outbreak Day, Last of Us Day, at a certain city that involves the game or the show, and be like, all right, the first Outbreak Day, Last of Us Day con 1 day event will be in Austin, Texas. Come on down and celebrate people, and we might have guests involved there and have that big spectacle. And then next year it'll be in Boston, and next year it'll be in Billstown outside of Pittsburgh.
Basically Star Wars Celebration, but The Last of Us, because they hit different countries. You know what I mean?
And don't even make it a full 4-day event thing. Just do it as
Yeah,
a
just
one-off
a
thing.
one
See
day.
how it goes. Make it feel like old school Comic Cons where it was at a hotel or something like that, and
Right.
just have it a community thing. Again, and I'm not trying to be repetitive about it, but like that Gallery Nucleus was such a refreshing thing, and
Mm-hmm.
so lovely to experience. Be like, imagine that we got that on a yearly basis
Yeah.
at a different revenue and doing something else, or
And we didn't even talk about the upstairs. You know what I mean? Like it's all good and gravy because like in previous events they're like, oh, this is a discussion and a signing, for instance. But with the Last of Us one, it was purely a signing, but you had that immersive experience that was just above your head, pretty much. And so, for those people who aren't familiar with it, yeah, you go up to the second floor and you're greeted by a firefly, and they've got like the lights are dim. There's a blood red light coming from the bathroom, and the whole setup is essentially like a campground.
yeah,
And they even went as far as to put Joel's table out, so to speak, where you could put together, the
flamethrower.
flamethrower. Yeah, with the Savage Starlight comics strewn about, and letters from the game with the combinations and stuff. It was so cool, and it was like low maintenance. Like it probably took like a day to put together, but you
But
couldn't tell.
damn,
Yeah, like
man,
it was great.
yeah,
Yeah, I really, really loved it.
yeah. These are some of the pictures of the event. This is how it was. It was just a room
Yeah.
that was again pimped out to look like you were in the game or you were in the show. And again, kudos to whoever
Yeah.
worked on this. We commend you to that because I
Mhm.
felt that the attention to detail, again, the fact that they put Savage Starlight comic books
Yeah.
around and the notes, like I was
Yeah.
so happy as a fan that I'm like, imagine if you could do this for a big area for one day. Like here's a cool little letter you can find and whatnot. And yeah, do what Horror Nights did, but do it as a tour and do it as a yearly once a
Yeah.
year tour that you can just take it all around, and
Yeah.
then once you get through all the areas that it's in the games or in the show,
Yeah.
just rotate it again or take it internationally and be like, all right, now it's in Japan, now it's in
Traveling
Mexico, now it's in
traveling
Canada.
exhibition or something. Yeah, for sure. Because like even the thing in New York, it was a lot like that upstairs area where they did have the stuff and the props and everything. But that is something I will say. Like, I mean, granted, I only got to go through the maze twice, but it is something that they kind of like missed the mark on something. Not miss the mark. That's being too harsh. But like they didn't quite get to the depth of having like Joel's table, for instance. Like they had the intro. They have an intro with Ellie and Joel at the very front of the maze, and they have the pun book and all this stuff. But and elements from the first from part one. But like there were still places that they could have gone really immersive with, and if they just married the two elements, man, I would be I would go wherever it was.
Yeah, and again, I haven't been there yet, but I'd seen all the footage and whatnot. It was just, yeah, I'm like, imagine if we got that. And another good example I've used is that over the years I've gone to San Diego Comic Con, they had these interactive things outside the con
Yeah,
itself.
yeah, yeah.
They can go through as either a maze or whatnot. These pop up things.
Did you go to Brazil for the museum walkthrough?
My friend and I who covered the CCXP, we were so
Yeah,
like jealous. Everybody there, I'm like, that is so
yeah.
cool. I
I
wish I would have
wanted to
gone
go.
there.
I
Yeah,
know. I kicked myself in the aftermath because I was like, man, if I had just put together the pieces just like a little quicker, I would have figured it out and maybe tried. But I mean,
yeah,
that's a tough one. I mean, going to South America,
yeah.
that's another
Seeing
thing entirely.
seeing those pop ups at Comic Cons tells me you could do that for Last of Us. And again, keep it small. Don't go full big like Comic Con or Star
Sure.
Celebration, but do it small,
Yeah.
intimate, and personal, and you can get that vibe across not just the country but the world of fans coming in and be like, you know
Coming
what, for a
together. Yeah.
day you're
Hmm.
gonna be in the game or in the show or not.
Yeah.
What would imagine how cool would it be that if they build at one of these cities, one you stay at the hotel or is a mini con, and then besides that, next to it or somewhere close by, you have
Hmm.
Billstown, you have Tommy's Dam and whatnot. If you went to Jackson, if they ever do this event, they go to Jackson. We built the Jackson town, and just like, oh, kids are throwing snowballs, and there's the bar, and there's somebody like Gustavo playing the banjo, and like,
dude.
Again, I just came up with this right now. I don't know if this is in development or not, but I just pulled this out of my ass, and I'm like, all right, that could work. I would pay to go there.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Oh, it'd be so great. It'd be so great. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, the sky's the limit officially, right? Because the game is clearly like, everybody's one and all. But now they do have that added value of like, it is a TV show now.
Yeah.
So whether or not you like it, they're going to get some insane exposure. And like, for instance, like in the way that I don't think that the 10th anniversary had any impact of the maze being at Hollywood Horror Nights, I do think the show had a lot to do with it, even though it's not not the show version.
Yeah.
And so, it's going to open up a lot of opportunity for this franchise to like grow in ways that we might not be ready for. And who knows what next year might be. Like, even though it's an 11th anniversary, it's still going to be, Outbreak Day and The Last of Us Day. So what's to stop them from doing something crazy for that? If not the 15th. If they don't do anything by the 15th.
Yeah, they're just like, do I need to apply internship to a Naughty Dog just to be like, yo,
yeah, right.
Fuckers, hey, let's shake it up a bit. Okay, you guys worried about the games and whatnot? Give me the resources and I'll take care of the promoting and whatnot.
Yeah.
Again, an idea that just came to my mind right now was like, what if at this one day con thing event, they had a room. They had a room. Okay. They had all right. What if at this one day con event for Last of Us that they do yearly at several locations that expands, not just LA, not just New York, but across, and I would even start it in Austin, Texas.
How about we call it Bottles and Bricks?
Oh snap! You better pay me for that. I better get a nice check. No, but what I would say is that, like, what if at this one day con event they had a floor that was dedicated to motion capture, and what if they brought the people who help, not just direct, not the actors, but the people who would set up the volume, the section where the mocap stage is at.
Yeah.
And they would show fans what is it like to do mocap and spark interest for anybody who wants to work in the field. And like, how about as a plus, you can be a clicker for half an hour and we'll show you how to move and how to do mocap in this action. Again, a spare the time moment thing you can do and whatnot. And I'm like, if I had time at a con, I wasn't doing something whatnot, I would do that and be like, okay, I like mocap. I respect the form and art. How would that work? Well, we have the people who made the game possible in the show. Try it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something I put out of me. But speaking out of something out of me, I have, and this is gonna be cool to introduce you, Diana. I have a friend of mine, a fellow Last of Us fan, who I've come to know over the year, and who I sent out the call, and he was very sweet to join. I have with us Busy Braun joining us. Busy,
hey, man, how you doing, bro?
I'm good.
I'm happy to be here. I just woke up. I got like totally panicked. I saw your message and I'm like, oh my god, I totally forgot we were doing that.
No, that's all right.
Here we are. How you guys doing?
I'm good. Busy, this is Diana. Diana, this is Busy.
Hello, Diane.
Busy, what's up?
How you doing?
Doing well.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, man.
Busy, I don't know if you had the time to see it, but first of all, I have, again, with the critique we're giving out, it's coming out of love. It's not out of harsh malice. Yeah. This is the love that we're trying to give out of what things we would love to experience one out. But from what we got today, Busy, you see that we got new prints, a wallpaper you can add to your phone or system. We got new merch on the PlayStation Gear Store. We have a new T-shirt that they have teamed with Pearl Jam, which is the main thing I'm interested in getting. And they showcase a Troy Baker concert at Seattle they had last year. Did you like any announcements that we got out of merch and whatnot? Or
bro, I'm gonna be so honest. This is my first time seeing any of that. I've been working all day, and I'm like, yo, Ahsoka comes out tonight, so I'm gonna put my alarm and take a little nap. I didn't wake up for my alarm, but seeing all of that merch, like all of that's so
that's
fire.
Not even
yeah. I don't even have any complaints. That's all. That's so good.
Fair.
And I mean, I'm gonna be honest as well. Like, I just got a PlayStation 5, and my immediate thought was I am playing this game again on like
Part
updated
one.
graphics, like
Yeah.
everything, man. Like this game is just the Last of Us IP in general is
Yeah.
so fire, dude. It's so good, man. I'm not gonna get tired of it. And
That's fair.
just to
Yeah.
see all of this new stuff, like just to get that little snippet of what you just
Yeah.
showed me,
Yeah.
I kind of want to go out of my way and just side eye the rest of the stuff that they dropped. Like I
Go
want to
for
see
it.
everything. I want to see everything. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that right now.
And they did.
Pretty
It's
awesome.
worth mentioning too. They did a sort of mini drop on the official HBO store as well, where
Yeah.
it's got that graffiti print on on a hoodie, on a long sleeve and a short sleeve. And then they did a very quick. I don't know if you guys saw it. Maybe Busy didn't. Busy was sleeping. I don't know what sleeping is like. But they did on Instagram and maybe Twitter or X. They did a Go Fuji giveaway, which is pretty much like you just put in the hashtag and they shoot you a form of some sort, and you put in your details and you can get one of those for free. So I put it in. I asked a couple of friends to do it for me too. So we'll see if I get one in the next 24 hours. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool promo. But again, it was small compared to what I kind of expected overall. But we'll see.
It looks like they dropped a little statue for it's
Yeah.
like Joel and Ellie for just the slim price of $1,999.
Yeah.
But it
That-
looks good.
That's from the Dark Horse Direct thing.
Mhm.
Because again, like a lot of the statues sold out, and they're like, well, let's make a miniaturized, smaller version of it, but yet still available for fans to buy and whatnot.
Yeah.
I want to bring up this comment from Andrew F1690. I need that prequel DLC story. I would love to play Henry and Sam living up to, well,
That's my friend.
Andrew?
That's the friend that introduced me to The Last of Us. So
Really nice.
Yeah.
Hello,
Wow.
Andrew. Yes, that is again.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make this clear for folks that I don't want to see each of these individual characters' story leading up to when we meet them. Just a look outside the window, just a few seconds. I liken it to what, again, being a Star Wars fan, what Tales of the Jedi did as an animated show. It didn't give us a full blown episode story of one up, but it was just a wrinkle in time of these characters that they were showcasing and what they were thinking, what they were going through in that set time. And it doesn't directly lead up to something, but yet it connects in a very deep way over the overall thing or overall story of Star Wars. So I figured that there is plenty of room to do that for The Last of Us.
Yeah, I mean, especially because like you look back at Left Behind, for instance, right? You kind of get all of these. They have this beautiful thing about the storytelling where you're in the present, you're jumping ahead, and then you go all the way back and you get all of the actual memories attached to the plot points that they have dropped in dialogue, in props, in items. And so the opportunity to have a DLC like the Joel and Tommy one is so, I mean, I wouldn't say easy. Clearly it's not easy. It's going to take years to even do something like that. But the opportunity is right there because like we've never met Sarah's mom. We've never seen Joel and Tommy actually being like construction bros, or even the people on the side of the road that did hijack other people before they became good guys. There's all that storytelling, even meeting Tess for the first time. And so, like you said, it doesn't have to necessarily give that payoff where it's, okay, this is the part where it leads into the game. They can do it just like they did Left Behind and kind of like, okay, now things start to make sense. And that part goes where that story left off or indicated, whatever. So it's like, come on, man, and just give us a little more of those characters because there's a gigantic ocean worth of storytelling they could dive into.
And what's weird is that I remember for the longest, besides the Tess adventure or Joel and Tommy like runabout, I always heard, saw this in the background. I'm like, and they did bring it up to an extent in the show.
Show with Ashley.
but how do we get there exactly and whatnot? And which again, it was a beautiful thing to see in live action, but I was just like instantly it was like that connects to that. There is no way in hell that doesn't connect to that in some form or fashion.
Now, do you think that they'll take that opportunity, maybe not in the gaming sphere, but with Ashley Johnson in a full-fledged episode or maybe even a short film?
It is too rich of a story to not do it.
Yeah.
Again, you don't have to do a full game and whatnot, but something as simple as, again, as a 4-issue miniseries or a DLC to an extent when showcasing the motherhood of that side and whatnot. And yeah, I think there's more to what Ashley can do. And what's weird is that this be poetic, that what if Ashley played Anna in the show, but what if Bella played Anna in the games, and we see that play out? I'm like, that is as poetry and it rhymes as it fucking gets. I'm like, I don't know, I don't see where else that would play from it. And if we see baby Joe and Tommy and it's Pedro who plays their father, fuck it, go for it. I don't give a shit. Like, oh,
let's go.
I would love that.
Yeah.
But I want to showcase and go back to the fact that if it wasn't for that first game, we wouldn't be here vibing as much as we did. I know you got introduced to it, Diana, via friends, and I haven't looked back since. And I know we've talked about it, busy, about how much you connected with that game. Looking back at the promotion for that game and what that game started as, because, for example, like up until that point, it was just Uncharted that had re-energized the Naughty Dog name. Again, we all grew up with Crash Bandicoot and Jack and Daxter, but it was Uncharted that was like, whoa, this is a new vibe. And then they went, all right, we're going to go even more left with Last of Us. Do you, after all these 10 years, and no matter where we jumped into to joining this franchise and these characters that we love, do you think it's a miracle that it's gotten this much love and reception, or do you think that speaks to the people behind it and whatnot? Because again, this game came about after Walking Dead was a comic book and it started as a show. We had gone so many post-apocalyptic movies and shows like The Road, I Am Legend. I mean, throw a rock and you'll find.
And a majority of them are so much like hit and miss. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of them are, and again, it's. And I've said it, and I might be outed as a nerd and whatnot, but I always tell folks that I like zombies. I don't love them as much as a lot of people do. Sure. But this is my best interpretation of that element. Again, they're technically not zombies; they're infected. But I know that the jargon that the majority of the world will be like, "Are they like zombies?" Okay, I get it now. The clickers, the clickers are the best example of it and whatnot. And the fact that you hear these stories about how like initially Tess was going to be the main bad guy in the game, and
you saw that wall right at Nucleus. They had a wall of like the conceptual storytelling where they had it's pretty sick. I don't know if you got a photo of it, but I do have a photo, and Tess was the main adversary, which I did not know at all, and it was a big revenge story where, I mean, spoiler alert, like I sat there and read the entire thing, and essentially what happens is that they introduced Tess's brother into the storyline, and I believe Joel or Ellie killed the brother, and so it automatically turns this entire narrative of like Tess and Joel being partners into now she just wants to kill him because he killed, Ellie killed her brother. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And then, Joel killed the brother, and so at the very end, and it's because, of course, he was trying to kill Ellie. So you go to the very end in the last row of the board, and it says that Ellie kills Tess, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And that was the end of the game. Like that was it. Okay, cool. Like end of story. And I was like, "Oh, I don't know about that actually."
Hearing that, you see how that might have factored in to the episode in HBO when they hit the laundromat and Joel kills the son. Or the brother, the son or brother of the Millie Lewinsky's character from that town that they hit.
Yeah.
And I was just like, God, it's fascinating how these ideas that didn't play out how they were initially conceptualized, but that they make their way in some other form or fashion and whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, what do you think is about this game that has made it last this long? Like, I can say it's Gustavo, and that's people be like, oh, right, I get it. I listen to that music when I like. Do you think it was just the perfect storm of like you've seen these stereotypes, but we've never seen it in this form or fashion, and so reiterate it.
Yeah.
And how, especially in the game, it takes a
Yeah.
while to these characters connect.
Sure.
And you believe the connection, you believe the longevity of them connecting, whatnot. What do you guys think it is about this game that made it still just as loved and not loved more?
Busy, you can go first because I already
Yeah.
have my it's probably gonna take like 20 minutes for me to even say it. So you wanna go ahead.
Well, I want to start off and say that I don't think it was a miracle that it did well. I mean, I think that everyone involved was just so damn talented at what they do.
Yeah.
They just managed to make like just beautiful art that we experienced. I played this game. I was very young when I played this because I think I was like 14, 13 when it dropped. So it was like one of the first like hardcore story games that I played. So I know that was a big reason I connected to it
Wow.
because I was already like a Walking Dead fan. So being able to watch play this and all that, it was pretty dope. But I can't really say. I don't know if it was because there was someone as young as I was, as one of the main characters. If that was part of the reason why I enjoyed it as much as I did. But I also loved how real it was, how brutal it was, like how they didn't have a Joel be just the white knight, how they didn't have him be the hero, you know what I'm saying? Like this man had a lot of shit, going on with him. So it was like they didn't hide that, and it just made the story so much more interesting. And actually seeing where that began with the flashbacks, when you first start the game, it really makes you understand why it's as crazy as it is, and I don't know, they did just such a good job, like leading up to like the main story, and I can't really tell you why I love it so much. Like it just happens, but I don't know. They deserve everything that they're getting, all the love, everything. It's 100% deserved.
Yeah.
No
Oh, man.
miracle.
Yeah, I know. I'm definitely going to agree right there, like right off the bat. I don't think it was a miracle at all. Like, even if I didn't come in right at the get-go, I also was a Walking Dead fan, and I read the comics, and I played the games, and I watched the show. So, it wasn't, The Walking Dead even itself wasn't your typical zombie show, for instance, and they called them walkers, and they changed the game a little bit. And they even have Bear McCreary, doing their score for the show. So it was like, okay, they had these elements that really kind of pulled you in. They made you care about characters that didn't even exist in the actual lore in the comics and stuff. And so, like Daryl Dixon, for instance, he's not a character in the comics, but he's an amalgamation of different characters. And so, the fact that they've been able to come this far and have this many seasons in different shows and different
Now he has his own show. Yeah.
Yeah, he has his own show now. It's still going. Like it has a, we were talking earlier about like what if they had not Walking Dead, but if they have a Last of Us like convention, right? And when you go to conventions, you pretty much see The Walking Dead has that. So it's almost a matter of time before The Last of Us does. But I think where The Last of Us really got it right was, it took a minute, and of course the amp up of Naughty Dog as a company really coming up against the big boys, like the other gaming, producers, is that, again, the storytelling is there. It's unique as it is similar and familiar. So it's like, okay, you could, like if I were to pitch this game or the show to a regular person who's not really involved in any of that sort of pop culture, they go, oh, okay, it's like zombies. And it's like, well, no, because, to your point, they're infected. And so the story is much more than just The Walking Dead, for instance, right? The Walking Dead wasn't about the zombies necessarily. It was about the living people who were essentially walking dead. So for The Last of Us, it was incredible because they were introducing, again, a familiar story where, like, who knows, in the Last of Us universe, maybe The Walking Dead exists. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's a part of pop culture to them. And so they're like, oh yeah, no big deal. But here comes this very real, by the way, infectious disease that does derive from fungus. Let me tell you, I work at a museum, and I didn't know this until 2 weeks ago, but we have a cordyceps infected ant in the collection.
Oh,
I was like,
it's brutal.
Bro! And I looked at it, and the entomologist was like,
nope.
Yeah, it has cordyceps. And I was like, I'm sorry.
Fuck that.
I have a video of it. I have living proof. It's in a bag, in a box, in another box in a storage unit. And I was like,
that is chilling.
am I going to be Joel or am I going to be Ellie in this situation?
Or are you going to be Tess?
Yeah, am I Tess? Is this how it started? So the fact that they were really able to kind of like magnificently introduce, like, this is what the world could be like in a very real sense, where, because in The Walking Dead, you never know what starts it. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. I dropped off the show.
They don't say it. No.
So yeah, you never quite get the sense of what started it all. And with the game, you kind of get that for a bit, but then you realize, oh shit, it's related to something very real. It's related to fungi and spores, and so they kind of dragged you through and into this universe where these scenarios they don't have to be like hyper realistic. Like, it's not something like this is going to happen next year, but that's where the show comes in. Like, it could be pancakes one morning, the next morning, your neighbor is eating their dog. and so the fact that they were able to introduce the scientific element, articulate it very, very well, to the point where you stay intrigued, you stay informed and curious about the story that's unfolding, as well as making you care about characters that may not be on the right side of things, as we learn from part 2. You know what I mean? Like, it's an extraordinary task. And so the fact that they do play on the daddy-daughter thing, that's a huge thing for me. Like, I lost my father 2 years ago, like, unexpectedly. And The Last of Us was like the last thing I really got to share with him, where he was so like into it. And like, my dad knew me best, out of anybody. And so the fact that he would hear Gustavo's music, I'd be playing it while working, remote, and he'd be like, "Oh, what is this?" And I told him, I was like, "It's from this game, The Last of Us. I love it." And he was like, "Oh, can you put that on my phone?" And he was so excited. He watched the entire like cinematic gameplay. Like, he wouldn't play it. He was like in his 70s. But he watched like the 2.5 hour cinematic like cut on YouTube, and he was so into it. He was so hyped for the show, that it's like, man, if it can get somebody like that like a senior that's completely not of this sort of entertainment world, like, it speaks a lot to the power of the story. And so the fact that they played into those relationships, and you could, like, you yourself, if you're Joel, for instance, you might have an Ellie, you have a Tess in your life, you have a Tommy, like, all these people are very relatable. And so I just gotta tip my hat to Druckmann, because also introducing Gustavo into the fold and really making an emotional sort of, they're going to test your morale and your choices, especially when it came to part 2. Holy shit, like, that's not easy. And so it's not a miracle by far. It really did, I think, hit the nail on the head for so many people, even if people don't like the second game or prefer other games for that matter. I think it's still something very special that doesn't happen every day.
The zeitgeist. It caught the zeitgeist in the right time.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, the fact that now I have an entry point to family members who are like, okay, you don't want to play the game? Fine. Watch this version of it that is as accurate as possible as it's ever going to be. I've always said that what that show did is the best case scenario of an adaptation. And the fact that this was going to be a movie initially, the fact that was going to happen, was in the ballpark.
Yeah.
And that Sam Raimi was directing it. How do you guys think that would have turned out? Imagine if this was a 2.5 hour, 2 hour. No, knowing the studio, they'd probably be like 2:15.
Yeah, in 2015. In 2015, I think they would have clocked it in at 148. Like, honestly, I think, like, how long was Spider-Man, for instance? Like, maybe 2 hours and 2 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. I think 2 hours and 15 minutes is being generous, especially for a Sam Raimi film, because I think Doctor Strange was like 156 or something.
It was about that time frame. Why not? Yeah. Not to say that I don't think these type of stories aren't possible in movies. I mean, to me, the two big examples I've always said that of a non-Last of Us movie is Logan and the Quiet Place movie. I'm like, you look at that, I'm like, that is up, Last of Us alley. It's not the whole thing, but it's up there. Yeah. And I feel that, like, between what you go through with Sarah and then Boston and then Pittsburgh, it's just like that's that's a movie right there, and it's not even the whole story itself. And
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, when you guys think back at like how this could have been a movie, was there somebody that you had in mind that like, you know what, they would have made a good Ellie or a good Joel?
Oh man. I don't know about that. That was tough, especially because like that person in line at the nucleus
Had the
event
poster.
had the poster, the teaser poster that they gave out at Comic-Con, at San Diego Comic-Con in 2015, which is the fact that they got that far. The fact that they had the studios all on there and the Sony property and everything shows that they were really far in the process. They might have had an Ellie. I don't remember them announcing anything, but I know for a fact I was there. So I don't know. I don't know, man. That's tough. That's really tough. And they probably would have aged her up for some reason.
Well, what's weird is that the only thing I knew was that Screen Gems or whoever was that were gonna produce the movie with them and Raimi, that they said that Naughty Dog could write the script and they could have final word on casting and directing. And the only thing that they said, and I remember you can look it up on YouTube if anybody wants to watch it, but that they almost had Busy. I don't know if you know her name or you, Diana, but Arya Stark, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Maisie Williams.
Yeah.
They were going to have her come out and be like, we would want her to play Ellie and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I've always said, that's a cool pick. Why not? To me, before Bella got chosen, the one that scene that could pull it off was, again, this is years later now, but that Caitlin Dever would have been a great pick.
She was my number one.
Ellie.
Yeah.
Remind me, who is that?
She was in what's it, Booksmart or this stuff? But funny enough, she was in Naughty Dog's wheelhouse because she plays Nathan's daughter in Uncharted 4, the epilogue, and she most recently is in a movie called No One Can Save You, which is really good.
Oh, she's from Last Man Standing.
There we go.
Okay, that's what I know her from.
Yeah, she's great. She's a great actress.
And I remember they asked her at one point, like, what you want to play? And she'd be like, I am down to do that. As long as everything works out, I've been down to it. I'm just like, that would have been a good pick as well.
Yeah. What are the chances you think that they would do a swap out for Ellie? Do you think they're going to ride or die with Bella, or do you think they're going to age her up? Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah,
I mean, I think she's too goddamn talented to push it. She might not have like the older look, but I wouldn't get rid of her. She's so good, bro.
Yeah, they made it clear that like they don't want to recast that. As long as if Bella doesn't want to, then they will remain being Ellie. And what's fascinating is that because again, for those who don't know, there's a big time jump, and the only thing I could think is that they would have to hold off a few more years till Bella grows a little bit to, as accurate as possible, do that storyline, so you can see the difference of the youth innocence, then youth lost, and then young adulthood in a mix, and then young adulthood almost gone off the deep end.
Yeah. Something that my friends and I talk about on our podcast is that there's always this layer of fandom where when people see a preview of something, like in comic books, for instance, like it's not like the comic book, oh, it sucks, I hate it. But everybody gets a glow up. Everybody. And so to the people that may not love Bella as Ellie, like they still have the opportunity to make them look a little more like Ellie, so to speak, because there is going to be an age jump. There is going to be a season 2 glow up, whatever that is, because they did it with Game of Thrones. They're going to do it with The Last of Us easily. And it's just something that they do. They even did it mid-season. You know what I mean? Like everyone was kind of like, oh, they're not wearing the gear from the game. But what did they do with episode 3? They immediately glowed them up, and you get the classic green flannel, you get the maroon shirt. So it's just a matter of time, man. Like she, like Bella may not have colored eyes like Ellie does in the game, but I wouldn't doubt that their look in the next season moving forward, they're going to slowly progress and look more and more like adult Ellie by the time part 2 really does come around. I
agree. And what's weird is that it's funny that you bring up the costume thing, because I was rewatching parts of the show again, and I was just like, yeah, they're always wearing the jackets. I'm like, but it was cold in Canada. I
Yeah.
get it. I understand that. I didn't want to put them through that. But
Sure.
I remember just being like, but at least put the costumes once. And I'm hoping
Yeah.
that if in the upcoming stories that we get from the show, if
Yeah.
they do a flashback during the time period, just a day, find a day where it's sunny and warm, and just
Mhm.
shoot them with a costume. So we could have that, and
Yeah.
give Joel the shotgun.
Yeah.
Let Ellie with the pistol and whatnot. Do something like that,
Sure.
or
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and
it's just like we were saying earlier, right? Like it's kind of the way that they folded in nuances and characteristics from the game was very clever, especially like because even as small as the backpack, I was like, oh, they don't have, oh, okay. But then of course they introduce Henry and Sam, and that's how he gets the backpack in the show, which I thought was marvelous. Like it's a great way, and it is
tie it.
even though it's not exactly the same,
Yeah.
it still has the undertones and the story, the magnificent storytelling of Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, like together as a force that is reminiscent of the game, which that's what made me love it. Like I was like, okay, like I might like people may not agree with the show version, but I'm like, dude, no, I can enjoy both, and I think they've given me ample reason to love the show as well.
Yeah. Busy. From where we are now, and I don't know if you managed to hear what we were saying, but if Naughty Dog or their partnering people would come out in social media and be like, once every year during the Last of Us Day, we're gonna have a mini event for y'all that will be, you could celebrate the franchise and do stuff at a particular location that could mirror where the game or the show is at. Would you fly out to that place for one day, or would you rather be a long weekend thing? Because I feel that
I'd like it to be a longer weekend thing,
okay,
Like I like to, I don't know, I'm a weird traveler. I like to
Same.
spend the day getting somewhere and then spend that day winding down, and then the next day spend the entire day doing whatever I'm doing, and then the next day is all about traveling home. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, if I get to stay there for multiple days, then hell yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna say no to that. But
Right.
I don't know. I think it would be better for people to have multiple days to experience it, like it was like a convention,
Hmm.
so they could choose which days. I don't know. I think it would be. I don't know. That'd be awesome. I don't know.
Are you guys familiar with the Uncanny Experience? So
no, is that an X-Men thing?
it is.
Oh,
And
it
that
is
was,
Uncanny
yeah,
X-Men.
100%. And so it's funny that you mentioned this because like the Uncanny Experience, I did not go to it. It was actually just this last weekend or something, or maybe last week, but it's essentially what we're talking about here, like what could be done, right? And so what had happened was that just a small core of X-Men fans were like, what if we rented out this mansion? It looks like a mansion. It's not an actual mansion, but it's like a 5-bedroom mansion in the middle of New Jersey or Westchester, whatever it is. That's almost close to New York, sort of, kind of. I don't know. But it looks like a passable Xavier mansion. And so
that is
right,
cool.
Amazing. I would have thought to that.
And so word got out, right? They were like, okay, we're going to do this event. It's for X-Men fans. Come out and cosplay. We're going to have some cool stuff. Then what started to happen was that they started to get legitimate guests. So people from the animated series came out, the original creators, Eric and oh my gosh, Eric Lewald and Julia, his wife. They're wonderful people. I love them so dearly. And then Larry Houston, who is the art director,
the executive
for the
producer.
show.
Yeah.
And then the more traction it got, they got the voice actors for Rogue. They got the voice actors for Storm, Jubilee. Like they all came out for this event, and it was like a 2.5-day event where there was 2 days of stuff to do, but it was like a 3-day getaway. And so if they had a Last of Us one, I'd be like, sign me up. Let's go.
Yeah, I get where PC's coming from. It's
Yeah.
just that for me, because we have too many cons doing that already, I think the uniqueness that would bring up would be like, all right, for a day and a half thing, is that you get to geek out as hard as you can for Last of Us stuff. And it just happens that we're in Jackson. It just happens that we're in Austin and whatnot. But I get that sentiment because of how much
You wouldn't
that
mind
stuff
if they
is.
did it in Boston?
Listen, I am an LA native, and I will always be an LA native, but I would not mind going to Boston. Granted, I would not be able to wear anything Lakers or Dodgers
Oh,
related
yo,
because
if
I'm
you
not.
wear something Lakers over here, bro, we're
I would
gonna have
get
words.
crucified.
That's crazy behavior.
But yes, dude, are you kidding me? I'd be like, busy. What's the best hotel? Let me know. I'm coming to Boston. And
Yeah.
to the record, I always want to showcase is that it'd also be a good example to people to travel out of where they're usually at, because that's what I'm trying to do now, even with these events. Just travel to where I've never been and see what it's like. That was the unique thing for me when I went to Star Wars Celebration this year in London, is that I've never been to London. I've always wanted to be in London, and I went. I got to geek out as a Star Wars fan, and I had a day to myself to just see what London is, both at day in and night. So I think yes, absolutely busy.
That's why I'm excited for Japan.
Man.
When are you going? When are you going?
For Star Wars Celebration 2025. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. Like, what if they took an approach like that and had them in different locations? You know,
yeah,
that'd be so cool.
I'm really excited because I know, like, since The Last of Us, it popped off even more this year due to the show. When Halloween does come around in Salem, I know there's gonna be so many cosplays. Like, it's gonna be crazy. Yeah. So I can't wait specifically for that. Because I live in Salem, so it's already terrible with the traffic and all that. But once I start seeing cosplays for, like, Last of Us, other shows like that, but it's gonna be fun.
That's awesome.
Look forward to.
I think that's gonna be now a big thing, other than Harley Quinn and Deadpool for Halloween. Is that like Last of Us?
Bro, you'll see like 100 Harley Quinns, bro.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It'll be fitting for like to do an Ellie and Joel just walking through a town in their masks and whatnot and just going about. I do want to bring up this comment that Andrew brought up now. That thoughts on Craig Mazin saying that part 2 will be 2 to 3 seasons long.
I wouldn't necessarily mind that.
Yeah, same.
I'll say this just because there's still work stuff being played out by the strikes and whatnot. But I'll just say this, that if said story or company was doing that thing and the creatives were going that route, that would be the smartest thing to do instead of condensing it to one season. I think if you're going to tell that story and the heat wave that's going to come with, you need more time to develop it, because it's twice as big as that first game. And the fact that they did it in 9 episodes, and some people argue it would need it more, to which I agree to an extent. I think a solid 10 would have been nice for season 1 to let it breathe more. But for that other story, if you try doing that in one season, you're not asking for failure, but you're prepping to condense something that is built as epic as possible and traverse as something that is just not. I don't know about how y'all feel, but yeah, I think that's the route to go, and anything else in that would be illogical.
Yeah, I agree. Excuse me. Yeah, because the second game, maybe it was longer. It just felt so much longer in general because you were going back and forth and you were learning about Abby and the Seraphites. And I felt like I spent so much time in those particular worlds with the wolves. That wasn't quite the same balance as part 1. Yeah. And I think if they were, to do that cinematically, if you will, to do it that short would be a disservice to the storyline and also to the progress that they've made in the season 1. So I think the only approach, especially if they really want to tell both sides of the story, so to speak, they have to do 2 seasons. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's nothing less than they have to do it, because there's just no way. There's just no way to also, to have the whole climactic, death, if you will. And then to kind of make you sympathize with Abby like they do in the game, and kind of see things from her perspective, and to almost question yourself, like, wait, are Joel and Ellie actually the bad guys? Or like, if they do it in 9 episodes, you'll never get that satisfaction.
No.
It'll just be Abby is the bad guy, period, end of story. But that's not good storytelling. So I think the only way to do it is to really dive into the backgrounds, dive into both sides of the lead characters, and and really run with it.
Yeah. What about you, Busy?
I think no, that's fair because that's my thought. There's so much that happens in that second game, and it'd be a shame to rush it. But I said the same thing with season 1. I was like, how are they gonna put the entire game into one season? And they managed to do it without any issues, and it worked, you know. But I feel like the second game is gonna be a little more difficult because it doesn't. The first game highlights, and we know it's specifically about Joel and Ellie, but the second game is focusing on two characters who are barely even together for a majority of the time. So it's like it's really going to be hard and difficult to do,
Yeah.
and showcase all the characters that they interact with, each individual character interacts with, and do that in like one season. So I don't think it's gonna work if they do it. Like I mean, then again, they've done so much, and if they did manage to do it in one season, I feel like they could find a way to make it work. But I feel like it's more reasonable to do it in 2 seasons just to make it. I don't know, to make it more enjoyable, or I don't know. But I feel like 2 seasons is the way to go.
Yeah, I think when what Diana brought up of the Seraphites and the wolf is that's a good way to play it out. That like, all right, the next storytelling, we're getting a little bit of the wolves, and then we slightly tease the Seraphites, and then in the following season we start off with the Seraphites, and then we bring back the wolf and whatnot instead of, because I feel like we would get Daredevil season 2 all over again. Where again, I like Daredevil season 2.
Excellent reference.
But you know what I mean, like where you bring in two antagonistic elements to the main lead, and then half that season feels like, all right, cool, we're engaged with a convo about is this the right way or the wrong way, and then the other half it feels like a vengeance rom-com storyline, and it just the molding of it feels a little bit off. And the fact that but by the time there is a time jump, there's still some time in between that is highlighted, and it would make sense to play it off that way, and without revealing too much of what part 2 goes down. That I share the same sentiment that like 2 or more seasons is the need to do that. What's gonna suck is that people don't know. If wisecracks start spoiling stuff online, which I hope I don't.
Oh, they already started, man. They already started.
Yeah, that's the one thing that again, I haven't played it more than 1 time and a half, and I'm not going out of my way to do that. Like I feel like it's too of a dense thing to just spill out, and also see how people who aren't familiar with the game, how they're gonna take it. That's another big testament of like how people who never play the game are going to take what's coming, whatnot. So,
well, do you think that there is a version of the universe where they don't do it? Because I will say, people, before the Tom Holland era of Spider-Man films, people attributed like the whole failure of Amazing Spider-Man 2 to the fact that they killed Gwen Stacy, and it's like, bro, she died in the comics, and so much more devastatingly. So it's kind of like that's the whole reason.
And that kind of made the movie for me too. I'm not gonna lie, like the emotional, that was so different.
Right. Which then cues up No Way Home, with the redemption, if you will, like that comes about it. Again, without being very void of what we're talking about, if they don't do it, it'd be surprised, be like, whoa, where are we going with this? If they do it, I'm very intrigued how they're gonna balance the aftermath after that, because that's the one thing that I still won't get over, the fact that like as soon as we cross the halfway mark in the game, the not the storytelling, because I can't change that, or the characters, but the pacing just fell off in the second half. And it made it more of a thing where I just wanted to finish it just so I wouldn't get spoiled instead of living in it. And although there are some stuff that I love, that like that's a catalytic moment. And I'm not sure how they would do it. Again, they've changed stuff from the first game.
I have a theory. So
okay, try being vague a bit, because I want folks not to know of what
because like with most shows, right? Walking Dead, again, being a great example, is that they need that cliffhanger, right? They need that mid-season cliffhanger. They need the season cliffhanger. And so a lot of people that I've even talked about this, the potential of the death and playing it out as a series, like, oh, it's going to be the end of season 2 and that's going to be the cliffhanger. And I was like, oh, no. What I think is going to happen is that they could inevitably start the season with it and kind of go backward, because it's kind of like, if you have a name and a face, like Pedro Pascal, and he's already built up 9 hours, let's just call it what it is, worth of being a wonderful, relatable, funny character. Maybe people hate him, I don't know. But if you've built up this character that's very likable, and you do kind of send off the sort of message right at the top of the next the next season, it's like, you don't kill him off and then he's gone from the show. If they killed him off early on, I think there's more room for them to keep bringing him back, because then you can do the museum flashback where he teaches her how to swim. You can do all of those throwback scenes after the fact, and he still feels like he's alive. And I think, I don't know if Neil or Craig said it in the Last of Us Show podcast, but they made a similar point with I'm forgetting her name, but the lovely actress that played Sarah. Like, she's gone after the first episode, but you feel her throughout the entire series.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, what if they did that sort of thing with Joel, where maybe they don't kill him in the first episode, but what if they do kill him in the second episode? But then the way that they keep him alive is that he's past tense, but very much alive in the rest of the series. So I don't know. I that's kind of where I think they could go, but happy to be wrong. Like, I still don't want to see it, but it's gonna, hopefully they'll do it, because I do think it's really important to the story.
Nico Parker is the actress who plays Sarah.
Nico Parker. Yeah. She's good.
All I'll just say is that it's gonna be an interesting next few years when it comes to that story, just because, man. How much do I want to say? Nope, I'm not gonna say it. I'm gonna save it for that, and just say that, like, that you talk about Empire Strikes Back, cliffhanger, dark, whatnot. I think, I'm not gonna say it. I don't want to spoil stuff, and I don't want to predict something that might actually happen. But I just tell folks that, like, if you had a hard time watching that first season, how it was rough.
Oh yeah.
You ain't seen nothing yet. That is kindergarten compared to what's coming our way. That is easy, whatnot.
For a few reasons too.
Yeah, and I we'll see how that's gonna play out. I don't know. But I think what we'll do, because we're already at 1:17. We'll wrap things up. Just because I think, again, I'll speak for myself. I was a little underwhelmed with the announcements that came about Last of Us Day. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop being a fan. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop waiting for new stories and experiences. But I just wanted to hang out for an hour or more, just with friends, just to vibe off this franchise that we love. But to wrap things up,
did you buy anything by the way?
I haven't bought anything yet. No,
I
was like, I sent you that GIF that Dom the Bomb put out of, from the boys of what's his name, Anthony Starr, just be like,
Highlander.
Highlander. Yeah, Homelander. I was just like,
Homelander. Yeah,
you gotta be shitting with this stuff. But yeah, Dan, tell me, do you have? I'll never talk to you about this. Do you have a favorite moment from the first game?
Ooh.
Or at least, could you choose one that'd be like, you know what, I like this one?
Shit, that's hard. That's really tough. And it's like it turns into like funniest moment, hardest moment, saddest, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I will say, like, the entire introduction and demise of Sarah really does. It totally fucks with me. Like, there's no denying that, and especially like with what Neil and Craig mentioned about the show, especially like it, and seeing the creation footage of how Neil kept pushing Troy, for instance, to like, no, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Like, I'm hearing you, but I'm not feeling that you're a dad that just lost his daughter. Like, even seeing that footage, like, still gets me. So it's kind of like, that's a big moment for me, but there's so many great parts. It's tough to nail down one,
What I'll say is, what else can I ask? I'll say this. If by next year, what we talked about isn't brought into fruition, I will make it an effort to start a ball rolling and see if anybody else will be interested in doing this.
Let's go, man.
Because hearing that story of Uncanny,
was
very inspiring. The fact that they checked out a mansion, I'm like,
dude,
doesn't get more excellent than that.
You know how much cheaper a destituted like hospital or a warehouse,
an abandoned building.
Like, we need some props. And it's like, all right, we'll go to the.
Yeah, we just got to make sure it's up to code in order for this to happen.
Yeah,
we can do it. No, and I'm telling you, Bottles and Bricks 2025. Let's go.
Oh, and I also want to say this because me and my friend Sam, we joked about this. In the next seasons, there better be more fighting with not just guns, but use what's inventory around you. Throw bricks to cause a distraction. Go use the
Give me the nail bomb. I want the nail
exactly. Or the Molotov. I agree. Busy. I know I've asked you in the past, but like looking at it now, is there a scene that isn't the main one that everybody goes to that you appreciate more as the years go by from the first game?
I think Ellie looking after Joel when he's hurt.
Yeah.
I really admire like where their relationship kind of started off, where they just both wanted nothing to do with each other, and it turned to Joel putting his life on the line for her, and then Ellie realizing she wants to do the same. Her putting her life on the line for him, and just seeing like the love that they had for each other. Like they didn't really need to show it in any other way other than the fact that they were more than willing to die for each other. Like I don't know, they're both willing to go to war for each other, and I feel like a lot of those scenes exactly a lot of those scenes really highlight it, and there's a lot of emotional moments within that first game, which I mean I could mention too, like whether it was the interaction, the fight between Joel and Ellie, where she says everyone leaves, everyone but you, whatever it is,
Farmhouse,
and just little things like that just really show how broken they are and how much they really needed each other in that specific time frame, and in a world that's so dark, they were the light that they needed, as corny as that is. It was just really cool to see that, just different moments like that.
Beautiful. That's gonna be it for this live stream. If anybody bothered checking this out, thank you so much for joining us in celebration. Diana, tell the people, where can they find you across the World Wide Web?
Yeah, well, personally, you can find me at DAIKOU on Instagram and all the other stuff. But I also have a Marvel/MCU podcast with my friend Jeffrey Ramos, and it's called A Stark Contrast, STRKCNTRST. All the good things. Yeah. And we do comparisons of comic book versus cinematic. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff. We focus on one character per episode. But you can find me in there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Busy, hermano.
Busy Braun everywhere, man. I mean, you can find me TikTok, Busy Braun, YouTube, Busy Braun, Instagram, Busy Braun, and Busy Reactions, because we got 2 over there. Same thing goes with Twitter. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Yes, folks, go seek out Diana's podcast. Go check out Busy's Reactions. You could find me on this channel. I have, now that there is hope back with the industry, there's stuff that I've been saving. I have iron in the fire that I've been holding off because of my stance, and hopefully in the coming month stuff finally gets sorted out, and then I could drop stuff I've been covering in the shadows. And I have, when it comes to The Last of Us stuff, I have a ton of ideas I want to play forth, and know there's that Sam who couldn't be here today, Jorel, Busy Diana, will in some form or fashion, I will let them know, want to get their thoughts and be like, might you want to be part of this? So stay tuned into this channel if you're a Last of Us fan. I'm going to put all their informations in the description below so you can go check them out. And as always, to the edge of the universe and back. Endure and survive.